It's the real word. It's the real word. It's the real word. It's the real word.
We on a mission and that's bringing y'all the truth. You know the problem, but we get into the root. The devil watching, yeah, he always on pursuit. But Jesus is our rock, so we shall not be moved. We on a winning team, so we can't lose. We say facts, cause we hitting y'all with proof. Started from the bottom, now we standing on the roof. As God as our witness, we gon' make it to the moon. When you want the truth, the world be hiding it. This the real word, we providing it. We got Ace, BK, Truth, Rick Star, and we plan to make a movie like it's Pixar. We came a long way from the plantation. We just tryna save your souls from damnation. So if you down with the message, tune in every week. It will lead you to the message that you seek.
It's the real word. It's the real word. It's the real word. It's the real word.
Welcome to the Real Word Season 9, Episode 4. Shout out to everybody that's been watching. Shout out to everybody that's been supporting.
Shout out to the block.
Yeah. Shout out to everybody that's helped us to get thus far. We thank all of you for being here with us and for joining us. Oh, you looking for your phone?
Yeah, I'm good though.
Okay. Introduce yourself.
Oh, y'all didn't remember me as Kimmel Hall, BK Truth 8, 8 is for Kobe, the dog.
You already know. Shout out to Kobe. Rest in peace, Kobe. Rest in peace to Kobe, daughter, man. We're here with a special guest.
We got Steve out here. I'm there taking his introduction.
Go ahead, Steve. Introduce yourself and tell the people a little bit about yourself and where you from.
I'm Steve Wilson. I'm 74 years old. I grew up in Delaware, Ohio, and now live in Scottsdale, Arizona. I've just written a book called Teetering on a Tightrope, My Bipolar Journey. It has to do with starting at the age of 10, I encountered a very traumatic incident, and that precipitated me becoming bipolar and maybe some other reasons. This book of mine takes me through the rest of my life, because the rest of my life I was in the grasp of bipolar disorder. I will tell you a little bit about my family life. I am married to my wife, Lenny. We've been married for 50 years.
Congrats, man.
Thank you. I had 3 daughters. They're now grown and married. And I have 2 grandchildren. For the most part, my life was spent in the clothing business. My family had a men's and women's clothing store in Delaware that survived for 84 years. And I closed it in 95 and went into the custom clothing business, traveling all over Ohio and then here in Phoenix, selling custom tailored clothing.
Mm-hmm. Checks all the boxes. Good. That sounds wonderful, man. Good life.
That's my life.
Yeah. So you were talking about something traumatic occurred in your life that caused the onset of your bipolar. You want to talk about that?
Well,
Truth.
I can talk about it. I always went to the movies at our local theater in Delaware on Saturdays. And this particular Saturday I went to the movie, and when the first feature was over, because they always showed double features back then, I went up to... Well, yeah.
That's a blessing.
Back a long time ago. This time, the year this happened was 57.
Shout out to Wall Street Theater. We used to go there and watch movies all day long. We used to just go there.
It wasn't a double feature, though. We just made our own.
In those days, they had a curtain, and the curtain would close after the end of the first feature, and then everybody would go up and get popcorn or Coke. So I went up to get popcorn. I got popcorn, and I went over and they had a machine that she got the Coke out of, and it kind of just dropped down like it was floating in air, and you got the Coke. Well, it cost a dime.
Just making sure Coca-Cola.
Some guy came over and put a dime in the machine for me, and I didn't know who he was, didn't know anything about him, and he said, would you come with me? I want you to help me out in the restroom. And for that summer, I had gone to camp and had, on several occasions, been requested to clean the restroom. So I kind of, as my stupid, naive mind worked those days, I thought that's what he wanted me to do. But it wasn't. And when we went in the bathroom, he attacked me.
Uh-oh.
That's about all I'll say about that.
In Jamaica, we rebuke the devil, you know.
When that happened, did you tell anyone right away, or did you keep it to yourself?
My decision was to tell no one, and I didn't for 30 years.
Wow. Why?
And my wife didn't find out from me until 2015. Over 40 years we'd been married at the time.
Wow.
But I told nobody.
And why was that?
Scared somebody'd find out what I went through and would blame me, and I blamed me, and it was horrible. So I just kept my mouth shut.
Yeah, the darkest secrets, you know, you don't want to put out there, you know, it leaves you vulnerable.
So how did you make peace with that situation?
You know what the amazing thing was? And it didn't prove to be good in the long term, but at that term I just shut it out of my mind. I just pretended it never happened. And that worked for a while, and then I started getting hit by bad depression.
You started, what was the depression from that you started thinking about the incident again, or was it just other things?
Never thought about the incident again.
Okay.
The depression just started. When I was in 4th grade is when it hit me. I was a star student. When I graduated from junior high, I was 8th in our class of 210.
All right.
But the depression started hitting me when I was in 4th grade, and it just beat me to death, to where for about 2 or 3 years, my grades just dropped to nothing. And the depression was terrible. It was like I was worthless, nobody loved me. I didn't start thinking of killing myself at the time, but I couldn't study, I couldn't do anything but watch TV.
You had any siblings, or you had any siblings or family, or I mean, like two parents?
I've got a brother and a sister. My brother is living in Dallas, Texas. He was an airline steward for 40-some years, just retired. And my sister is living in Delaware, Ohio. She was a nurse.
They were old. They older than you?
Pardon me?
They older than you, or?
My sister is a couple years older. My brother is 5 years younger.
Okay. So you're right in the middle. That's like me.
Yeah. They always say the middle child has all the problems.
Yeah, you take on both sides. Yeah. J. Cole got that track, Middle Child for Our Generation.
So eventually, how did you find salvation from that situation?
Pardon me?
Eventually, how did you find salvation from that situation? Because you're able to speak about it now with us as strangers.
Well, actually, things got a lot worse. Things were the worst at right after I graduated from college. And then I went into a deep depression, and all I could think of was killing myself. I never tried Don't know why I was able to keep from trying, but it was horrible. And that was 1971. And then I went in because of another incident where I had an altercation with my father. I went into, that time they were called sanitariums, but it was also named Harding Hospital in Worthington, Ohio. At the time, it was a well-known psychiatric hospital. It was only 15 miles from my home. So I went into Harding Hospital for 3 weeks. Got better, but none of the medications would work. Much anyway. They helped a little bit. And then I got out after 3 weeks and went to work in the clothing store. Couldn't do that. Went to work in the golf business in Arizona. Failed at that. Went back to the clothing store. Failed again. Went to a department store in Columbus. Worked 8 months. Failed again. All of these failures were because of my depression. And
how did you tie the two together? Well, usually, I wouldn't even say usually. I'm trying to understand depression from. We get a lot of guests and so on talk about depression, and I'm actually learning more that depression is not even caused by a traumatic experience. It could just be, it just happens sometimes in life.
Yes, that's right. It does. And I have not had any psychiatrist or therapist give me an answer of why it starts. They all say it's from a chemical imbalance. Why does it one person and not another? I have no idea.
So let me ask you this, right? That situation that happened at the movie theater, how did it impact your life when it came to like dating and interacting with women and even men after that?
Well, it was a huge problem sexually with the women I was with. And I would, and what would happen is I couldn't perform sexually.
Uh-oh.
Provide us
Say it ain't so.
Provide us more education on that.
Pardon me?
Provide us with more education on that.
You know, I just read a book on bipolar, and they do say that a traumatic sexual encounter can cause problems in the future with performing sexually. And what would happen is I would get in a position with the girl, and we'd start playing around and things would go fine.
He was a Mac back then. He was like, I'll get in position. You know, I had her in the room. I lined her up.
As it get further along, I'd stop. Could not perform.
Were you nervous?
Any chances?
Were you nervous, or was it just something you didn't understand?
No, I just couldn't do anything. There was no feeling.
Erectile dysfunction?
Not
No.
like that. No.
It has nothing to do with erectile dysfunction.
Okay.
It has to do with not being able to get excited, not being able to. Here's what would happen. We'd get going a little bit, and I'd stop. That was it. And the lady would be going, what the hell?
She's like, I thought I was going to get some.
So,
did
this situation impact you religiously? Like were you religious or part of a religion?
It did eventually. Right after college, up through college, I was a Presbyterian and practiced once in a while, but I believed in God, I believed in Jesus, I believed all the stuff that goes with it. But in 1974 or something like that, I got a job as a traveling salesman with a suit company out of Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
And I got hit really bad with depression and that. And I was housed in a hotel in downtown Cincinnati, and I was really bad.
Mm.
So I would get out their Bible, and I would start reading Psalm 23 and asking God to help me. And no answer.
Mm.
And I would do this every night. And then, out of frustration, I just said, I'm done with you, God. You won't help me. You won't help the world. It's terrible all over the place. So you're out of my life.
I think everyone has that.
And that way ever since.
Mm. So where did you find your blessings?
My blessings during the terrible depression and bipolar came from mostly my family and friends. I never went back to church. I never did any of that kind of stuff. Work was always secondary, but my friends and my family were always very close. And now I'm going to tell you something that's very important to people who find themselves in a bipolar or any other mental health situation. My parents, sister and brother, now take my brother out of it because he wasn't around, did very little to support me. Oh yeah, they got me a psychiatrist and that, but they did very little. And what I'm saying is one of the main things that helps the most when people are depressed or other mental illnesses is that they have a support system. I had none. My wife was still in school. She's 2 years younger than I am. And she was still in Florida. And that's when I went through the worst of it. And I felt as if no one gave a damn about me. And that made things even harder. So, go ahead.
Well,
So, love. How did you eventually find the love of your life that you've been married to for over 50 years? How did that happen?
Well, I found her luckily in college. My senior year, she was a sophomore. And we went together all through the next 52 years, except for one little problem. She was going to move out after she graduated from college and live with me. And my depression was so bad and the voices in my head were so bad that she sent me her trunk of all her clothes and things to come out. And my mind kept going, get rid of her, get rid of her. So I called her up and told her she's out of my life.
dang. We're on that moment?
So it sounds like you also got bipolar schizophrenia if you hear voices as well.
You know, the voices only hit about a handful of times in my life.
Okay.
The first time was when I was a swimmer, and I would swim laps every day. And I was also a lifeguard. And we had a county pool in Delaware.
You did a lot.
Pardon me?
Yes,
I
he
said
was
you
very
did a
active.
lot.
Man. Very active.
Yeah. So I went to the pool. It was somewhere in the summer, or like in June of 71. And the first time it ever happened to me, I dived in the pool to swim some laps.
Mhm.
And on every stroke, the only thoughts were, kill yourself, kill yourself. Every stroke.
What?
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. So I only swam 2 laps. I got out of the pool, And 2 days later, I entered the hospital.
You walked yourself in, or you ended up in the hospital?
Pardon me?
You had walked yourself into the hospital, you're saying?
Yeah, after the incident with my father.
So what happened with your father? You skipped that part.
Yeah. It sounds like that's missing details, man.
Well, I want people to read my book.
Yes. Well, I'm telling you, you got people interested.
Well, let's just say, as I told you, nobody from my family gave a damn what I was going through.
Why? Did you feel
I had
like?
a bad relationship with my dad,
Oh.
and we were at a barbecue at our house in June of 1971, and I was cooking the hamburgers. And he came over and said, "Get the hell away from there. You don't know how to cook hamburgers." Now, you might think that doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of difference.
No, it does. It just reminds us of Caribbean parents in a way. I heard it.
Yeah, we all said that to each other. You know what you doing?
Why you buying grill?
To me, it meant the end of being able to hold stuff in.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a knife sitting on the grill. I picked it up.
Oh man, Jason Voorhees.
And I went to the hospital.
You was tired of it.
Did your father go to the hospital too?
You was tired of it.
Huh?
I don't even think he knew I was about to stab him.
Oh, you stopped.
But did he get stabbed?
No.
Read the book.
Oh
man. Man. I like that. Nice cliffhanger. So, you lived through a lot of different decades in your life, and earlier you were telling me a story about the kid that they bring from Africa to America to play professional sports, and you said that it pictured the black guy. And I kind of laugh because that's how they see a lot of us black guys.
Athletes.
Basketball players.
Yes.
So growing up, like, I know you've seen a lot of changes in the world. Like, how have you seen the world changing, and what's your view on today's politics?
Oh, we're going to go there.
Yeah, we just want to hear it.
We need. You got the knowledge we need.
I think that politics is a nightmare. Trump was the worst thing to ever hit our country.
Oh boy.
I don't want to get into how badly I dislike what the Republicans are doing, but let's just say I'm a staunch Democrat.
Okay.
Oh.
I hope you guys are too.
We're not gonna speak about politics.
Put me out on the line.
Nah, that's not what we really meant, though. Like, we weren't talking about like blue and red. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about more so black and white. Like, how have you seen things change? Like, we always want to hear like the other perspective. Like, we could speak amongst ourselves all the time because we grew up with one another.
Yeah.
But we want to hear your perspective from the 70s to the 2000s.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, let me tell you, I have always been very cognizant of what blacks have gone through forever and continue to go through forever. But I'm going to just mention something that happened to me when I was a senior in college, because I always felt blacks were treated like bad and had no rights. And now this is back in the 60s.
Yeah, you know about that. You've been there. Yeah.
And so I went up to this girl, black girl, at Rollins, where I went to school, Rollins College.
Mm-hmm.
And
in Ohio?
we had, pardon me?
In Ohio?
Florida, Winter Park, Florida.
Okay. Mm-hmm. We have about a minute, but if it cuts off, just enter back into the Zoom with the same link, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, so go ahead.
So anyway, there was an activist black girl, very well accepted in this almost all-white school, but she was very pro-black conditions and all that. So I went up to her one day and I said, can't remember her name. And I said, I'd like to help out your cause. And she looked at me and she says, I don't want your help.
You trying to scoop it out.
So at that time I think,
Oh, man. The Zoom cut off right when it got juicy. Shout out to the real word, y'all.
Man, I hope y'all listening, man. Y'all gotta listen to this. We ask them the questions you want to ask them.
He said, you want to go there, huh?
He's like, okay. If you watch the video, he's like, oh, he gotta back up.
He's like, let me prepare myself for that.
Yeah, it's like, okay, all right. Thought this was book questions.
So we'll see if he comes back in. Oh, here he comes right now.
Right there.
Steve, right when it got juicy and cut off.
Yes, welcome back.
So now I gotta start over.
That kind of shocked me that a lily white guy from the north is going to help out. So I kind of moved on from them, and if I had to reflect on it, the only couple things that haven't changed much between blacks and whites is the persecution of blacks not being able to get into white society. Mm-hmm. And I was just reading one of my books, and it just showed how different it was a trial, murder trial, and they had a couple of trials, and the whites got everything they wanted.
A little slap on the wrist, yeah.
The black guy who was innocent got thrown in the can.
Yes, that still happens. And
all that stuff has remained the same. Mm-hmm. We all thought it was a big deal in the 60s when President Johnson passed into law that there'd be no discrimination, but in my view, it hasn't changed a lot.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your honesty.
I will tell you this, the Republicans will make it even worse. But I won't go there.
We saved that for another time.
I would say, like, overall, like, I feel like it's all tied in together. Like, things have been getting better. Like, being able to be in the rooms now with politicians and people of affluence, being invited to the country clubs and being in the room, I could say that
communication in person is...
Yeah, and they don't let enough of us that look like us in. You know, a lot of times when I go there, the only people that look like me really are the servers and a few other people. Yeah. And the people that do look like me that's in there, sometimes they don't want to speak to me. They rather speak to other people.
Yeah, but it's weird at the same time because we don't have gatherings like they do.
We should, though.
Yes, we don't have those type of events where we're like the host.
Like networking.
Yeah, network events. Like we don't have that type of communication in terms of, hey, let's all gather for our own award. Well, I think the closest we got was like the Soul Train and I guess BET. Those are the closest things we get to our huge gatherings, but nothing really for charities like we're doing.
We should throw. We should try.
Have like a gala or something like that. Yeah. Everybody gets suited up. Might see Steve come through. You know,
everybody. So, Steve, like, what do you think overall of? Pick one.
We got joy and economics, right? That's left.
Yeah, economics. All right. So you was talking about how things were worse under Trump and how you like the Democrats, but I feel like the economics of today has been thrown off. Like I feel like it's worse under the Democrats.
Oh, the talk starts now.
Well, there's no question we're
doing bad.
Possibly heading toward recession.
No, we are in a recession. They just rebranded. They just don't want to say it.
Yeah, it feels.
I can say that you might be right.
Mm-hmm.
It is a lot worse. But
Global
I
recession.
can to a lot of things of why it's worse. The supply chain, the
After 2 years?
coronavirus,
After
all
2
those
years?
things made what?
This is
You're saying after 2 years, the supply chain still hasn't been fixed?
Right.
Wow.
It has not been fixed.
How?
They can't get things delivered. If you go into your grocery stores, you'll see pockets of
talk about
shelves
baby.
that are empty.
Talk about baby formula.
Yeah, baby formula is very expensive right now. Very, very expensive.
I don't understand. Like, you can't even get baby formula consistently. Every week they got new ones.
Yeah. That's not Biden's fault, and I wouldn't even say it would have been Trump's fault. But
I think Trump would have did a better job with that than Biden. Biden looked like he's asleep most of the time.
Hey, let's not get into politics.
It's like easy cop now. Any other job, Biden would be forced into retirement. But for some reason, for the president of the United States, like they think he's able to do the job.
That is true. But but let's be honest. We can all be honest about this. They just wanted Trump out of office, you know.
Yeah. And they got Obama's friend. So they're like, yeah, take Obama's friend.
I think we'll be better off by 2024. But this one was just to get Trump out of office.
Like take Obama's friend and a brown woman.
Please help us get rid of this guy.
Wow. So, where do you find joy in now? Like, because I know that you still go through your depressive states and you still go through times of depression.
Do you still do the bipolar, or you got that?
Or are you taking medication?
There's no
now?
cure for bipolar.
Are you on medication?
The thing that saved me was medication.
A lot of it's medication.
For years, they were giving me
It ain't cheap.
medication that was completely designed for depression. I'd been diagnosed for 8 years as having severe depression. And one day my psychiatrist said, you know, we may have made a mistake. Thanks,
Uh-oh.
And we think, this is 8 years after the first
That's too many days.
depression. He says, you might be bipolar. Hell, I'd never heard of bipolar.
Wow.
So he gives me a prescription for lithium.
DSM-5.
And lithium not completely, it altered my mind and everything, and I was about 50%, 60% back to normal.
It got you lit. That's why they call it lithium. It's like the lithium battery, right? It energized you.
So I took lithium for 22 years, and it was causing problems with my kidney.
Yeah.
And I shifted over to another drug called Lamictal, which continued me on my good way, but I was still having problems because it only got me about 50% back.
And so you switched to marijuana?
And most of those problems would be a runaway mind. I could, if I told you something bad about yourself and really pissed you off, I would worry about it for the next 2 years, just constantly thinking, oh, what did I do to Ricard? What did I do?
For 2 years?
And I couldn't get the ruminations to stop, which was pretty bad. It's tough to work and always thinking about something else. But I got a new psychiatrist in around 2000, and he gave me a new drug that was pretty much just out called Paxil, and that's when I got really good.
So
made almost all those ruminations go away.
So how did that other problem go away? The problem when it came to women, you were saying that, you know.
Yeah. Did your wife was it fixed by the time?
I have no explanation for how it went away, except for I fell deeply in love with a girl my junior year, and we were together for about couple of months, and suddenly we just had sex. I felt great, went through it. Don't know why it changed. I guess because I really liked her made the difference, and I really...
You was cured by the poom poom.
It was
So
magic.
I haven't had any problems since then.
She got the magic. She put it on you, right?
It's like, I don't even know what happened. It just happened. Man, in high school, he was active, man. He was active.
So what's
Oh, that was college.
Oh, okay.
I was doing the same thing in high school where I couldn't feel anything. So
But you was getting close. He was out there shooting shots. That's good, you know. The kids nowadays are having issues with communicating to the female generation now. In terms of in our area, the music is, you know, a little darker, much darker.
a lot darker.
Yeah.
Back in the 60s and 70s,
It was love.
pure lily white music,
Yeah.
no problem. They didn't even say damn on them.
See? Yeah, so, and from my perspective growing up, you know, I found that music was like a teacher for me because I'm listening to the lyrics and I'm like, oh, this is how you know, talk game to girls and so on. But now they don't have that type of music, so hearing you talk about the high school thing, it's like, oh, I had a little bit of that too, but these kids, they don't got that chance. It's the women the music for women is like F these guys, and the music for the guys is F these girls. Like forget about them, you know.
Yeah.
That is right.
Yes, I'm happy to know that you see it too. From being from that older generation, even to now, you see the change in the music genre also.
Sure.
So what's your secret to such a long marriage?
What was what?
What's your secret to having such a long marriage?
Well, my wife was my biggest supporter, and I put her through a lot of stuff. And she stood by me, and even though I didn't tell her about my being accosted until 40 years, we were always truthful with each other. We had a couple of spells of not enjoying each other's company, to say, but not many times. It was pretty good. We communicated with each other. We loved our kids.
So for me,
it just went that. It was just easy, I guess.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
For me, I gotta ask. In the beginning, was it rough or easy, or did it like? How did the beginning start when you first got married? Was there a change, or? Because what we're told is, you know, and what we also see is that women get power.
Here, I'll give you a little preview of what can happen when you're bipolar. We got married in 1972, August 19th, in New Jersey.
That's my birthday, August 19th.
Really?
Yeah.
Gotta play.
Congratulations.
Synchronicity.
You hooked up to me. So, we drove to Atlantic City after the wedding, got a motel, and too tired to do anything but go to bed.
Atlantic City's my wife's
So I
favorite
got up the
spot.
next morning. My wife got up, or her name's Lenny, by the way, Lenni, and she got up and went out to the beach. I laid in bed for a while, and my mind started saying, why the hell did you get married? You really screwed up your life. It was relentless.
Oh, no.
And so I went out to see her on the beach and said, Lenny, we made a big mistake. Now, if you've been married one day and you tell your wife it was a mistake,
you breaking her heart.
you're in deep doo-doo.
You breaking her heart.
Yeah. But anyway, we worked it out. Because she knew that I had periods of time where it was just dark for me. So we got through it.
Okay, understanding. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, man, we covered all the topics. I was gonna ask a wild question, but I'll behave.
Ask him. Do you mind if we ask you?
I got a wild question for you.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a threesome?
No.
Okay. That was it. You answered.
Do you have any questions for us?
Well, I'm really curious about what your group is all about.
Our group?
I remember when I first contacted you, I'm scheduled to be on several podcasts, and yours is one of them, but I still don't know a lot about what you do.
Okay. You want to tell him about what you do? You want to tell him about what I do?
Well, he was wondering what we do together, and...
Yeah. So we grew up together, basically, and in 2015, I had the opportunity to preach, and then when I started preaching, I had a sermon that went viral. From the sermon going viral, then I guess the things that myself and the people around me were doing became more popular, and so more people started to gravitate towards us, whether it was us doing things in church, us doing things when we went out, like to parties, things like that. We just had that energy. And so we continued with that, and then I started inviting those same friends to come sit down and have conversations, and that became a podcast. So with the podcast, it kept growing, so I kept inviting more and more people, and people was like, yo, this guy seems to know a lot of people, like, that's coming willing to sit down. Like, we started off with the people, like, close friends and people from the church, then we ventured out to other people, and then eventually, like, you know, we got hooked up with Podmatch, and then that way we get people from all over the world now, so it's getting big. And from there, in 2018, from doing the Facebook Live that turned into a television show, and then from becoming a television show, we started the not-for-profit in 2018 because we used the popularity of the television show to get people to donate. So we would then get the donations and then buy things and give back to the community. So he wasn't just preaching and talking and sitting here not doing nothing. He started to give back, and then that's when it was like, you guys should turn into a 501c3 and see if you could get grants and, you know, funding and stuff like that. Yeah. So then we started working, and then, you know, we started working with the politicians, local businesses and groups and, you know, different churches. And then eventually we got like awards for things that we were doing, and then it just kept growing.
That's the clean version of it. The dirty version of it was also what he pulled, what I found attractive about, you know, the idea of the show and everything, and the 501 was, we grew up skeptical of the media. So we started, when we was doing our own media, the goal was always to, let's get the real truth out of people, so that way people can actually hear something that doesn't sound like, you know, a script. That's why it feels so raw. We're really just asking you conversations like we're just in the moment. It's not a script or nothing like that. So, you know, whenever we gather around, we're always gather around real people so we can ask them real life questions that are not. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you are religious based.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, you can say that. Because I am an ordained minister.
Okay, now what do you think when I come on here and tell you I threw it all away?
Well,
and we'll never go back.
Well, then I still go back to salvation, and that was something big that me and him was talking about. Like, how could we include salvation? Salvation is knowing that there's something bigger than you, and that God himself sent his only begotten son to die on the cross so that you can be saved. So regardless if you want to be saved or not, that salvation is there for you if you're willing to go for it.
Yeah, so the goal isn't to like change people's religion or nothing like that. It's just, you know, just making sure everyone believes in something bigger than themselves and, you know, have something to worship.
Yeah, meeting you where you at, but doing it Christ-like. Christ helped the people with their physical infirmities, as in like he helped the blind to see, he made the lame walk. he fed the people. Like, he met their needs before preaching to them.
Yeah.
So we're delivering the real word. Like, that's literally in the book of Matthew, the real word. Like, God came to him and said, I know you. He said, Father, how do you know me? He said, for when I was hungry, you gave me food. When I was in jail, you came to visit me. When I was tired, you gave me rest. So therefore, where the weakest of me is in need of assistance and you are there, you are also helping me. So that's the real word of God. It's about love and salvation. It's not about nothing else. Like, just like we didn't judge you, like we heard you out.
Yeah. No judgment.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Oh.
And I got one more question for you, because you didn't fully answer this when we were talking before the show started.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed on your website that there's quite a few pictures, and I don't think there's a white person in any of them, which doesn't make any difference to me, but it brings up is your community mostly African American?
Yes, I would say, because we grew up in Brooklyn, we grew up in Bushwick and Canarsie, and we are predominantly around black people.
I wonder if you heard it, gentrified. We just started getting gentrified.
Yeah, white people just started coming around us. If that would make sense to you.
Yeah.
As in, we've never physically assaulted or harmed any white people in our lives.
We haven't even been around them to have hatred for them, you know?
So I will tell you something. I am a facilitator at 2 mental health groups in Phoenix. I've been doing it for 7 years. And I've seen well over 1,000 people. And I can tell you only about 5 of them have been black.
See? Wow.
And I am very concerned that your community is not finding the help they need.
We can't afford it.
Therapy and medications and so on.
I like that you bring up the therapy, because we've been talking
I
about
could answer that question too, because I've worked within the shelter system. Majority of the mental ill individuals in New York that are of low income or poor background, they end up in MICA shelters. MICA stands for mentally ill, chemically addicted, which means like there's 7-8 floor, 200 bed shelters where they put them all in, and they're all over the city, and that's what they do with them. They keep them temporarily in the hospital where they give them shots or they give them medication, and then they send them back to the shelter. They discharge them back to the shelter. Hospitals do not provide long-term care, if you think about it, and long-term care is going to be very expensive. Who's paying for it?
Yeah.
But that's not the hospital's job unless you're going into a psychiatric facility, and most of the time they don't keep you forever.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the people who come to my group that are black are middle class.
They have money. Well, their parents got good jobs where they have good insurance.
They got money, but there's only about maybe 20% of Americans suffer from mental health issues. That's 66 million people. And the predominant number of those people who get help are white.
Because they have the money.
Most black people, for some reason,
I'm telling you the reason.
try to get help.
You're not trying to listen.
It's the dollars.
It's about the money. And the stigma attached too. Because white people, like, we're used to watching television where rich white people say they have a therapist. They're like, oh, I'm going to speak to my therapist. Like, it's almost like that's like a luxury.
It doesn't feel like a luxury to us.
And in the real sense, it is. Because I've done private practice psychotherapy. Like, the lowest I was charging cash clients was $100 an hour. And insurance, we bill insurance at $350. Insurance sometimes come back at $255. And the person will have a co-payment of at least $20 to $50 a week if they're doing weekly therapy. If you think about it, that's like, what, $200 a month? Like, that's a bill. Most people can't afford the co-pay, let alone the insurance.
And when you and with the money being such an issue, it becomes a secondary thought to fix your mental health.
Yeah.
Like by that time, you're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
Like black people in America, a lot of us are in survival mode. Like you might not understand that,
We
but
eat,
a lot
sleep,
of us,
work, and go back.
a lot of us are in survival mode. Like fighting for scraps.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to tell people who suffer from mental issues, whether you're black, white, or Hispanic, there are programs you can get into. They're not the best.
Mm.
Arizona has a program called Access. It's pretty good, but it's far from perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But they can get, if they're on disability, free medication, free therapy, and it's better than nothing.
When you say disability, you mean
And every
SSI?
state has it.
How would they go about the disability aspect?
Well, when you say disability, you mean
know,
SSI?
As far as I know from my members of my groups who talk about getting disability, it is pretty damn hard. But if you stick with it, after about the third interview, probably you'll get it.
Okay, so yeah, you're talking about
If you're
SSI.
not making too much money and you can prove to them that you have a mental issue through whatever
All
way,
the tests.
you can get it. And for some, it's the only way they can go. But a lot of people don't know anything even about that. They also can provide you with housing.
Mm.
So there is help out there, but it's trying to get the word out.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get the word out, they become too overpowered and they can't serve everybody. So it's a double-edged sword.
I understand.
Okay, I could explain what you just said because I worked within that scope. So he's talking about basically, okay, disability is SSI for those that are either old or disabled, but that hasn't worked enough to pay into SSD, which means like you was probably on welfare, did not make enough to pay into Social Security. You get SSI, which is like welfare for
level.
It's like welfare for disabled people. So you don't gotta work, you get a check. It's around, I'll say $500 to maybe $700 or less. You get that monthly. And then SSD is like if you worked since you were young and you paid enough into Social Security where now you're unable to work, you could reap the benefits. That one you can make anywhere between $900 to...
Doesn't that one go by age though? Or?
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Because there's early disability and there's late disability.
Yeah.
Like you'll get cash out early, but sometimes you get less. And then if you go into the shelter and you have disability or you're on welfare, then they'll keep you on shelter and they'll take a portion of that check. Then they give you food stamps, like the government's paying a portion for your food. Then they also give you cash, put a little bit of cash in your pocket. It's like $90 a month. It's not really a lot for a single person. Mm-hmm. But now if you have mental illness and you go into a mental illness shelter, there's something called the 2010 voucher, supportive housing for those with mental illness. Mm-hmm. And then they'll use a portion of your disability check or the government disability to pay for your housing, and they'll house you, or they'll give you a government voucher, city FEPS, where the city will pay for your housing because you have a... While you're in the shelter, they provide that. That's kind of my job because I'm a social worker.
Therapy, I think, is very important for people, for all people in general, because it's like, isolation is terrible. In the jails, if they isolate you, it's the worst punishment, So having someone to talk to and feel unjudged with is the most important thing. In terms of mental health, I think. You were saying to yourself how you felt that you didn't feel like you had any support. And honestly, I think that's the biggest thing we all want. We all want support. We just want somebody to support, and we support them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I find from most people in my groups that support means support. It means helping them feel good, do whatever. It is not for them to say, well, why don't you go take a walk, you'll be better. Or you have no right to feel this way because we're giving you a good life. Mm-hmm. Support means, how are you today? Are you feeling okay? Have you taken your medication? Mm-hmm. All those kind of things.
Okay.
So you just needed a hug.
Kinda? A hug?
I said you just needed a hug.
A hug would be nice. A hug would be nice.
So how did you feel about this conversation overall?
Well, it's pretty damn good. I didn't expect it to be so much
Topics.
outside of the realm of mental issues,
Oh.
but I've enjoyed it. I won't get into politics with you.
But even that's been fun though, like the little bit that we did speak on.
Yes, it's been a good conversation. I hope everybody gets to enjoy this.
And I want to make sure, I'm going to tell you again, I've just written a book.
Yes.
It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
You read my mind. I was just about to say, tell them one more time where they can find your book.
It's called Teetering On A Tightrope, My Bipolar Journey. It was just started on Amazon and Barnes & Noble today.
Okay.
It's $14.95. It's the best book you'll ever read.
Respect.
Hardcover or softcover?
It stands by it.
Hardcover or softcover?
Pardon me?
Is it hardcover or softcover book?
Well, I missed that again.
Hardcover book or softcover
No,
book?
book cover. I mean, paperback.
Okay.
And it's going to be, there's an e-book in it too.
That's good.
Yeah, the ebook is good. You know what you should do? You should do like the voice books.
Yes, voice books.
Yes, but I tell you, it is very difficult to get a book published in this country.
Why?
I made 22 solicitations to get a company to even look at my book after I sent them all the information on it. Nobody ever paid attention. One other friend of mine wrote a book. She gave it 140 tries
Sheesh.
to get someone to look into it. Those are the traditional publishers.
Okay, the big
So the only way I'd get it published was to do it myself.
Wow.
And it's very expensive. It is a long-term, this has been a 3-year project with me to go from when I started writing it till today when it is released. And it's an enjoyable process.
Because you're
But
passionate.
it's a little tough.
Yeah.
But I don't know where I was going with this, but anyway.
Oh, we were talking about the audio book, trying to get it to yeah.
The audio book itself can be up to $6,000.
Wow.
And I've already spent a bunch, but it was well worth the process. I'm glad I did it. I hope it helps some people out.
Okay, that's good. Well,
But you're gonna get residual income from the book anyway.
and then, yeah.
What'd you say?
I said you're gonna get.
I'm hard of hearing, by the way. That's why I keep it.
You're gonna get income from the book anyway.
Let me give you a little tip.
Uh-oh. Give us the
I have to
stats.
pay or sell 5,000 books to break even. The average number of books sold by an author for his book or her book is less than 500.
Man.
So it is a daunting task,
Yes.
but it's worth it to me.
You still wanted to give out your knowledge, so I get.
Unless you're super famous or popular. And
Yeah.
you put
Yeah.
Well, you take a guy like, any of these great authors, James Patterson,
Yeah.
you've heard of him.
Yeah.
like
And
Kevin Hart.
He puts out 20 or 30 books a year. All these famous authors monopolize the traditional.
Once you're hot, they stay hot.
Yeah.
Like R.L. Stein when we were kids with the Goosebumps books.
Yes, it was hot,
Like the Scholastic.
And they go back to back to back. They know when they're hot. They try
So
to.
for me, the reason I did this is not to make money, but I went through a bunch of bipolar books that have been written already, and I couldn't find any that chronologically take the bipolar sufferer through his life. And I thought, well, I'll do this way rather than just saying, they would tell about things.
You filled the
So
void.
it's a different book totally. It is alarming in places. There's funny things like the sex that are not really funny, but they come off that way.
Yes.
And so I hope it does something. We'll see.
Did you ever have another physical or sexual encounter with a man after that?
Oh no.
The man?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, hell no. I didn't go in that direction ever.
He said, hell no. And on that note, I think that's
Closing thoughts? Kimmel?
man. Don't let defeat hold you down. That's one thing I've learned from this episode. You know, keep striving even if you fall. You know.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
yeah.
Steve, closing
I'll
thoughts?
tell you something about the medication that is important for people to know.
Mhm.
Medication, when it works, is great. You can get back to normal or close to it, but you're not cured.
Mhm.
The average of people who get a lot of help from medication is 50%.
Only half.
So, a lot of the people, medication can make you sick, medication can make you fat,
Yeah.
and I'm talking 30, 40, 50 pounds.
Yeah. I see that.
And so what people are left with is a choice of, if they do have a medication that works but it has bad side effects, like putting on 50 pounds,
Mhm.
then the person has to decide, do I want to be in not good mental shape and have 50 more pounds on me? Or will I not care about the 50 pounds and take the medication?
Yeah.
So
So there's a lot of decisions to be made, and you'd be surprised how many people will say, I don't want the 50 pounds.
But they can't work it off, even if
Pardon me?
they can't work it off, like work out and
yeah,
work
count
it
to.
off.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
So anyway, the other thing I wanted to say about the medication is the side effects. Like I was saying, side effects can be brutal. I won't get into it, but when you read my book, you'll see two devastating examples of psych drug interaction. One of them was with my kidney, and one of them was with my eyes. So, and they were pretty damn devastating. But I still made it to where I am today.
Amen. Bless man.
Yeah.
Close up.
I want to just thank you, Steve, for like coming on our platform and sharing your truth with us and having this open conversation, you know, being vulnerable in this space with us. And I hope this conversation helps a lot of people, like, to become vulnerable and to be able to speak on this. Like you said, it took you 40 years to even tell your wife about some of the things that happened to you. And a lot of people are going through the same things. A lot of people did the same things where, you know, they're hiding these secrets so that they continue to move forward. But we see the outcome of it, and, you know, some people go into depression.
It's better to talk about it.
Some people deal with bipolar. Some people deal with different issues that affects them in different parts of their life, even through through their teenage years, adulthood, and, you know, up until, you know, even older.
Even
right
grandpa
now.
years.
Yeah, so it's like all these things that are accumulated over time, and we learn all these things that happen throughout life and what life really is as we share and sit and listen to the lives of everyone else. So I thank you for that, Steve. I thank you very much for coming on. And I want to thank all you guys for supporting. Shout out to Snaps Media Group for awarding me Brooklyn's finest.
I should have brought the trophy back.
I have to bring the trophy. Next time I'll bring the trophy, man. So shout out to y'all, man. Shout out to all the supporters. Shout out to all the people that continue to support the things that we do. We couldn't do it without y'all. So with that, we're gonna close out. Steve, you want to pray for us to close? You mind?
What'd you say?
You mind praying for us to close?
I missed that again.
Do you mind praying?
You know Steve don't
praying
pray.
for us to
Oh,
close?
you're asking a lot of an old man.
Close up, Rick.
All right.
If you're going to do the praying.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Dear Heavenly Father, that dwells in heaven, we thank you for this moment in time. We thank you for the opportunity to be here with you, Lord. We ask that you continue to watch over us, continue to bless us and protect us. Dear God, I'm asking for a special prayer over my brother Steve. Help him as he deal with his bipolar depression and Bless his family, continue to bless his marriage, continue to bless all his works, continue to bless his book, help his book to be there to reach other people and to help them as well. As bless Kimmel as well, bless his family, and bless me and my family, bless this platform that we have created together in this labor of love, Lord, as we continue to grow. Order our steps, Lord, and we put it all in your hands as we pray to you through your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
So we thank you all for joining us tonight. Good night, and God bless you, people.
We love you, bro.
It's the real word. It's the real word.